Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Welcome, magical ones. I have a very special episode today with one of my long-term magical clients showing up to share her gifts, her voice, and her passions. So I cannot wait for you to dive into this episode. Before we do, I would just love to take this moment to invite you, if you've loved listening to this show, and you have a deep dive into your gifts, into your wild feminine soul, power, magic, and truth, and you feel called to walk the next step, you are very welcome to join us in our Secret Witches Apothecary membership. I'm going to be closing the doors at some point, so if you're feeling the call, head to nicolebarton.co.uk/membership. It is a beautiful and authentic sisterhood of women walking the wild witch path, and we can't wait to welcome you. For now, though, let's dive into the show, because on The Secret Witch Show today, our guest is Olivia Roff. Olivia is a mystical guide for the soul and a spirit baby channel who lovingly supports women on their motherhood journey. In 2020, after experiencing 2 miscarriages, Olivia received a beautiful call from spirit babies, asking her to usher in magical souls to earth and to guide their mothers on their motherhood journey. Since then, Olivia has been on an incredible journey and has initiated some deep soul healing. Olivia's children are her greatest teachers and guides. They have initiated her deeply into her truth on her motherhood journey and into becoming the wild mother her soul came here to be. Olivia is passionate about guiding women into healing and into becoming the mother their soul came here to be. Now, Olivia is a very special guest because she's also a long-standing one-to-one client of mine. So this episode feels deeply meaningful because it's the living alchemy of Olivia's own journey of becoming the remedy for herself, of discovering her gifts through that process, of reclaiming her voice and expressing her medicine into the world as a soul guide and healer, that very secret witch to wild witch journey. In this episode, we explore motherhood as initiation, and what it truly means to become the wild, instinctual mother your soul came here to be. We speak about birth, miscarriage, spirit babies, shame, rage, feminine receiving, home education, healing the good girl and rebel shadows, and learning to trust the body's deeper instinctive knowing. Olivia shares how motherhood became the portal that initiated her into her gifts, her truth, and her wild feminine expression, and how the path of healing herself ultimately illuminated the medicine she is now here to share with others and helped her to create what once felt impossible. Let's dive in. Welcome, Olivia, my love. I am so excited to have you here. You're not just a guest on the show. You're someone I've had the honour of walking alongside for years now. I've witnessed you journey deep through the layers of all sorts of doubt, questioning, meeting your own witch, and really creating a magical life that once you kind of only dreamed of. And what's been so powerful to witness is not just kind of discovering the work that you do in the world as a spirit baby reader, a doula, guide for women in the initiation of motherhood, but also like who you've become along the way, like embodying and expressing who you are, your kind of wild, your she-wolf remedy, your wild mystical mother witch, for yourself in order to be able to hold that. So I've seen you kind of do all sorts, like reclaim your voice on podcasts as we're doing now, but you've done that before as well, in spaces with women, holding events, really stepping into what I know was once very edgy, and expressing your truth. like in a way that feels really like rooted in who you are and your body. And like alongside all of that, creating a life that feels really aligned for your soul, whether that's home educating, working with plants, expressing your medicine, really just choosing a path that maybe some people would say goes against the norm. And mothering in your own way, weaving your magic into life. So, and also lots of other things like learning to receive, and all the juicy things. So I'm really excited to explore all of that today, because I know for many women listening, many secret witches who resonate with reclaiming their feminine power, magic, and wildness, there's also, as you know, and as I know, this feeling of like, I can feel this magic, but can I actually live it? Can I really like make this happen in my life? So I know that you have created that and are still creating that. And yeah, I'm excited to dive in. So welcome. That was a very long intro.
Thank you.
So yeah, welcome. I'm really excited. And as you know, also like the premise, as you know well, probably more than most people, the premise of my healing modality is that women's stories are healing for others. So we're all archetypal remedies for others. And our stories are like archetypal journeys, moving through wounding and descent and kind of alchemizing that into gold. So I'd love to begin with your own journey, with reclaiming your wild as a mother and discovering your gifts through that. So yeah, what was your own initiation of moving from probably like good girl mama or rebel mama at times into the wild, the wild mother witch that your soul came here to be?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, so my eldest is now 10 and a half. So my motherhood journey started over 10 years ago. And actually, I was just reflecting on this before our call. And before I became a mother, I had started a healing journey because I had burnt out. So I had sort of moved towards a more natural approach to health, I would say. So by the time, well, that was like a couple of years. And then by the time I came to conceive, I'd already kind of opened that door, I guess, to that world. And then that sort of opened the desire to a more natural kind of way of mothering and wanting home birth and just doing like my whole pregnancy as naturally as possible. And yeah, it's really interesting as I feel like I've kind of, I don't know, I guess sort of gone in and out of that, as in like I knew, you know, right from the start the way that I wanted to mother. But yeah, the good girl kind of rebel had me sort of come in and out of it and move, you know, further in and then further back, and feeling like it wasn't possible, to be honest, that of everything I wanted to create. So I feel it's just really interesting now because I've kind of gone a bit full circle. I feel like where I am now, I've come back to all the things I wanted at the very beginning of my motherhood journey. And I feel like it's really interesting because you see, you know, on social media now as well, so many women living, I don't know, that way or mothering that way. But it wasn't easy for me. Like, it looks like it's quite easy, if that makes sense. It's like, oh, I'm going to choose a natural route and I'm going to home educate and I'm going to feed the children this way. And I kind of had that at the beginning of my journey, but it was, I would say, from quite a rebel place and from a like controlling, like, this is the way I'm going to do things and have to do things by the book. Like anything I read was like, just to be this way. And obviously I experienced a lot of pushback, like in my relationship with my husband and my family. And then I kind of gave up on it in a way. Like I never stopped with natural health. Like both our children have been raised very naturally in that way. in terms of like medications, and they're not vaccinated, and always use like natural approaches to their health. But other things kind of slipped away, like the food that we'd eat, schooling, all those kind of things. So yeah, I don't know if there's anywhere else you want me to go with.
No, I love that. I love that. And it's really nice to come at this from such a fresh perspective, actually, having known you and worked with you so closely. And yeah, there's just so much in that, isn't there? Because what I'm hearing is that there was this kind of deep, kind of instinctive knowing of how you wanted to be as a mother. And then what I'm hearing is almost like layers of conditioning. And you talk about pushback from family. And, it's like there was this seed that was sown. There was this kind of like inner witch piece that kind of knew like this is what's aligned with your soul. And then there were these layers of like conditioning, whether that be good girl or rebel or whatever other layers that could be. We're talking about your medicine being she-wolf, which is that kind of reclamation of our wild, and those are of course her shadows. And like essentially what I'm hearing is there was this kind of conditioning that kind of stopped you embodying and expressing that, is what I'm hearing.
And I think a huge part of that was my wounding around, which is a big part of she-wolf, is not feeling worthy and not feeling good enough, and doubting myself. I feel like I didn't experience that doubt when I was pregnant. It was almost like, it's like I just knew this is what I wanted. And then when my birth didn't go as I had hoped it would, and I didn't have the home birth that I wanted to, I guess it just threw up like everything, and it just threw into doubt. And then breastfeeding didn't go well, and it was just like a roller coaster of challenges.
I love that. And I love particularly the piece around challenge that you just mentioned, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But just to share, like I've witnessed you over your journey, when we think about what you've created now, you kind of are essentially like, you're homeschooling, you're living that life, you're eating from intuition, you're feeding your family from like in a very natural way. You're creating like a magical business with spirit babies, and like being a doula, and possibly we'll talk about that. And like there's just this completely different life that you've created. And I think what we just talked about before we press record was this sense of like motherhood as initiation. And so I love that where you've landed with that is like there are all these challenges, because as you know, you work with the wish an initiation, and that's very similar to motherhood. And actually my own initiation with the witch was through birth. So it's interesting that we've kind of got that synchronicity. So tell me more about like motherhood as an initiation and what you saw about that. Like what is motherhood initiating women into, and like how did that help you to begin to reclaim this magical life?
Well, ultimately it's initiated me into my truth. Each time I've gone through initiation, which is many, but as you know, bigger ones and smaller ones, just keep getting called back to my truth time and time again. And it's almost like actually seeing now what I was talking about at the beginning, that I kept kind of like sort of going in and out, and it's almost like where I've sort of drifted away from my truth, I then get initiated back into it. And so it's like just a wake-up call of like, no, hold on a minute, this is not aligned, and this is aligned with your soul, and this is what you really truly desire in your heart, and this is the life as a mother that you really want to live.
I love that. I'm hearing like motherhood and birth in particular. Well, actually, you tell me, like, is it motherhood and birth, or birth that is that wake up call as well?
It's been both, for me. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because obviously it was my first birth was very traumatic in the end, which then led me into creating my second birth differently. And then obviously in between I had my miscarriages as well, which also was another massive initiation into my soul, which essentially really, that initiation was more spiritual, I would say. That's when I kind of woke up to my spiritual gifts. And then my birth of our second child called me back into my truth even more, because then I was able to create the home birth that I really wanted, and see my power to be able to do that and have the support. See, the first time around, I didn't have the support that I needed. So during my second birth, I had an amazing doula, and had the support from my husband, had the support from her, and in fact family as well. So yeah, that was a big difference in that birth, but it still wasn't the home birth that I thought it would be. It wasn't the kind of calm hypnobirth, water birth. I mean, I didn't do hypnobirthing the second time around, but it was exactly what she wanted me to be. It was wild, instinctive, loud, primal, raw, very intense.
Let's talk about that, actually. That feels really juicy, because there's a sense of, and I think we talked about this briefly before we pressed record. Firstly, I want to name that what we're talking about probably seems quite normal to us now, having kind of been in the work of like initiation. But for many secret witches who are listening, who might be just landing here for the first time, they might be hearing us talk about things like, baby loss, miscarriage, these kind of almost like taboo things in our society, not as necessarily like an initiation, because people, I think, associate initiation with something positive. It's like, oh, I'm being initiated and then I'm going to create. Potentially, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of so like deep in that lens. It's difficult for me to remember like what did I feel about initiations? But there's almost a sense of like these things happening to us, and to a degree they do. Like there's a real kind of pain, and we want to be really honest about that. But what I'm also hearing is that they then became portals to opening you to your truth. So I'm wondering if we can talk a bit to those kind of taboo parts of our journey, and the challenges and the grief and the loss and the shame, the guilt, the fear, and like how you journeyed with that and how that helped you to be even more in your truth.
Yeah, so I would say all of my births and losses all brought up my deepest wounding around not being good enough, and not being worthy. Essentially around my body. My body wasn't good enough. My body wasn't good enough to be able to birth my first baby naturally at home. My body wasn't good enough to be able to carry my baby to full term. Got 2 babies. And in fact, interestingly, in my birth with our second child, even though I had the home birth that I wanted, I felt a lot of shame after, which essentially was around my body again. It was around just how I birthed, and the noises I made and the fear that I experienced during that. Also bringing up fears of my power. Like it's so intense giving birth. I mean, that is the most. I remember saying to my mum, actually, so soon after I'd given birth, that giving birth is the most powerful thing a human can ever do. So why are women not seen as such? And it always just came out of me, and I just will always remember that, because I'd just been through the most powerful thing I'd ever experienced in my life. Yet probably as a woman, I didn't feel powerful.
Or why that was.
Don't know. There's this just a sense of powerlessness to be able to create, I guess, what I wanted, but also I just feel like there is this perception of women in our culture to be weak and powerless. We see it in others and we feel it in ourselves. And I think that is so, there's so much in that around, you know, that shows up in birth. It shows, it's just like, you know, the way that women are treated in hospital, for example, the way the women feel in hospital if they're going in there to give birth. Yeah, I mean, in all our feminine initiations, you know, right from when we first start bleeding, it's shamed. We're made to feel like there's something wrong with our bodies. They shouldn't be doing what it, you know, what it is actually meant to be doing. And really, that is the patriarchal way of actually having us suppress our power by making us feel wrong, our bodies being wrong and powerless.
It's so interesting, isn't it? I think what you spoke to about your second birth, which was, of course, like a home birth, and there's this sense of you still, even though you're doing something that's so wild in many people's eyes, like they're like, wow, that sounds like the most amazing birth that like I would love, like to give birth at home. And you're still saying like, actually, even then I felt a sense of shame. And it's so interesting because I think, again, we're painted this picture, aren't we, through media, you know, in films when women give birth, of like this beautiful, serene, like natural birth where we're just like, oh, there it is. Here you go.
Just pops out, yeah.
Just pops out. And you're saying,
Or we get the opposite.
yeah, yes.
So we're shown either the woman screaming in hospital,
yes,
or this like perfect
Yeah.
birth where it just, yeah, there's not like the
yeah.
real life. Not that either of those aren't real. Of course they are. That is, you know, that is some woman's experience, but it's not. Yeah, it just doesn't feel like it's truth. Yeah, ultimately.
And yet, yeah, and so that it's really interesting because so many women would feel like, oh, well, you had this wild birth. What's your sense of why there was a sense of shame in that?
In fact, reflecting on it now, because it likely also wasn't exactly what I wanted. I considered having a free birth. And I think actually deep down, I wanted a free birth because with my doula there. But yeah, so when our doula said, shall I call the midwife? Because the pushing came on very quickly, like unexpectedly for all of us. So it was a bit of a, she called the midwife quick. And then she arrived like 20 minutes before my daughter was born. But she said, shall I call the midwife? And I obviously there was part of me that was like, no, don't. But the good girl in me went, oh, yes, we better have her here. So I think there was that because I ended up having paramedics there and I ended up having men there that I didn't know. And it wasn't the environment that actually I would have really desired for my home birth. But yes, I remember like reflecting on it not so long after, and a lot of it being around the noise that I made. My expressions, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think it was, I think it's like a mixture of those. And I, you know,
Go on.
Right. I was just going to say, actually, you know, I had to express, because at one point the paramedic was just having a chat with my husband, and my doula said, I think maybe you need to tell them to stop talking because you're making them look going bad. So she then encouraged me to use my voice and express, stop talking. But also, you know, had I said, actually, don't call a midwife, I'm fine, like, we can do this, would have been an expression of my truth. So I think there's yes, quite a lot there around like the shame that I wasn't fully expressing my truth. And that and yet I did, through the noises that I made, you know, what came out of me, it came out of my body. And so there was shame around that. That's what I felt afterwards.
Yeah, it's almost like both ends again of the wildness shadow pole. On one hand, like you being a good girl and not expressing your needs because you really wanted to say no, which of course is part of the she-wolf medicine, is like knowing how to advocate for our needs. And then also at the same time, being this wild expression of feeling shameful about that is what I'm hearing in that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so of course, given our wounds are where our gifts are, that's we then later illuminated that your remedy is she-wolf, and of course that is the wild mother. So I wonder if you can share a little bit about your own journey, or your, like, the way that you journeyed with she-wolf, and what, and even the witch as well, who is also about being seen in her truth, as archetypes for you. Yeah, what did you see around that with those archetypes?
I mean, the shadow of the good girl and rebel has played out for me like my whole life. Particularly seeing it in childhood. Well, sort of, yeah, mostly the good girl up until my teens, and then rebel really came out. And again, as I said earlier, yeah, I've kind of swung between both of those since. And boundaries, you know, expressing my truth, and yeah, my no, I guess. Yeah. In terms, like, in more regards to the witch, I feel like like my daughter really brought her out more. Interestingly, actually, I would say that, yeah, our son, who is our eldest, for those of you who don't know, yeah, that was more like she-wolf kind of, you know, that first kind of initiation into motherhood. And then our daughter very much brought in the witch. Well, she brought in you, so of course she did. So yeah, so that's really interesting actually to see.
Actually, I was just feeling that as you said that. There's almost a sense of like truth and magic.
Yeah, because I just share a bit more. Sometimes I forget that people don't know that's what we're talking about. So when I was trying to conceive our second child, I had 2 miscarriages, and throughout that journey, that's what opened me up to spirit babies, and my gifts with communicating with them. And so that really threw me into the spiritual world, I guess, because I'd only just really kind of started exploring spirituality like 6 months probably before I started my conception journey. And then, yeah, I guess like we sort of started with the witch working when we were working together, and obviously she was part of the witch, but just the witch kind of more generally. And then we, yeah, as you say, illuminated that my soul remedy is she-wolf, and then we kind of started looking at her more as well. She massively resonates with me. I mean, well, of course she does, but it's just like, she's just her wildness, her truth. Also, as I've said already, like she just really illuminated the part of me that doesn't feel good enough. A huge amount of shame and guilt around my needs. In fact, that's probably a massive part of her medicine for me, is I didn't know how to meet my needs, especially as a mother. And that is what she's helped me massively be able to heal. Yeah. I didn't even know, what my needs were.
That's really vital, actually, because I think, so again, so many women listening will resonate with that. I think motherhood, particularly for me, has been that initiation into really knowing how to meet my needs. I mean, I kind of like met my needs before I had kids, but then you have kids and it's like, hang on, where's me in this? And I think one of the things that occurred to me as I was thinking about this before the conversation is that we can often think as secret witches that doing this work, and by this work, I mean like learning to work with our initiations, so the work that you help women with as well, and the work that I help women with in terms of like journeying, navigating those portals of kind of transformation, is that mothers particularly, can often feel like this work is selfish. Like, this is going to be selfish if I focus on my needs. What did you learn about that? Because I think that's actually, a huge initiation for mothers, as you say, like meeting our needs. Tell me more if there's anything there that comes up.
Well, it might be helpful to share that our youngest was 3 months old, I think. Yeah, about 3 months old. And so our eldest was 5.5 when we started working together one-to-one. And it was really challenging trying to just like create that space for myself for our calls, create the space for myself to do like the work in between. And yeah, I mean, it really brought up all my wounding around not being worthy of having that time and space for myself. Not knowing how to create it. It was just chaos initially. But obviously, the more we work together, the more, I was able to heal with your support. And I guess the easier sometimes it became until, it's quite incredible actually to think back like what it was like for us as new calls compared to like where I am now. Having like full days to myself so that we can have our calls and, I can create my business and meet my needs and all those things. Whereas at the time, to create an hour to have a call or to take a little bit of time to have a bath, or it was chaotic. But I also kind of swung a bit then of being like, no, just like kind of the she-wolf, like, I can't think of the word I want to say. Kind of snappy mother, I guess. No, this is my time. Like, no, like ignore you. It was almost like one or the other.
Yeah.
Whereas now I know, I can create it really differently. And I can create it in a way that all our needs are being met, not just like it's either me or them. In fact, I think I said to you the other day, I saw something really interesting about that, is I feel like there's this sense in our culture, particularly in motherhood or parenting, even with dads as well, that it's either our needs or the children. We have to either abandon ourselves or abandon them. We have to like, if we want to meet our needs and work or whatever it is, then we have to, like, they have to go with, we have to leave our children as strangers. So many women I work with say this to me: I'm never going to leave my children as strangers. I won't leave my children as strangers. And it's just a really interesting thing of like, oh God, I have to like either sacrifice myself because I won't leave my child with strangers, or I have to just leave my children with potentially people I'm not that happy with, or in a way, for hours I'm not that happy with, I have to work full time. When really we can find, as you and me know now, incredible support. There are some really amazing childcare providers out there. I was one. Um, and, it is possible to be able to create that support for our children, have their needs met with people they trust, with people who love them, and also create our needs being met. And
I absolutely love
yeah.
that. And there's a sense of like the possibility that that is, well, what's made possible when we truly like allow ourselves to trust our souls. And what I'm hearing in that is this sense of like, as I invested in myself and allowed myself to go into that work and do the thing that felt selfish, like it's actually an investment in family. And I'd love to talk about actually now, because you talked about receiving, and I think that's been something that's shown up quite recently for something that you've created.
Yeah.
Home educating your daughter. And yeah, I'm wondering if you feel open to sharing around that, because I think there's so much gold in what you've created there. And I know you and I have created in a very similar way that's probably different to how even most people who home educate home educate. So I wonder if that feels relevant to speak to, because again, it feels like what you've created there is very much a result of seeing that as we invest in ourselves, that is also an investment in the family, but also that we can create exactly what you just said there. Like we can create this support queendom, as I would call it, that can help us to create our vision that isn't like sacrificing our needs or giving our children to strangers.
Yeah. And I remember, right at the beginning, I guess sort of keep reminding myself that, and after a while seeing the truth in that when I invest in myself and I meet my needs, it has an impact on our family. But at the beginning, I just, it was one of those things I just had to keep, and I still face it now, but it's just a different kind of from a different place. Yeah, remind me what you were asking me about
your home education journey.
Yes, sorry, yeah.
There.
So yeah, my most recent very big initiation was
pointing out there as well. We spoke about like how there are several, like multiple different initiations through motherhood.
Oh, I mean, constant. They're like but some just feel bigger than others.
Yeah.
Yeah, with our daughter. So she started school in September, and by October it was very clear that school wasn't working for her. And 8 years ago, when our son was 2, deeply desired to home educate. And at the time, it didn't align. I just wasn't in the place to be able to do it. And then I went, into my conception and loss journey with our daughter, and then her coming in, when she did come in, actually timed with him starting school. And it's really interesting, actually. I saw some notes on my phone the other day around my miscarriages and the soul that came in, which I believe is our daughter's soul, but how she showed me that home education wasn't aligned, and that our son was, he was going to go to school. And so at that time, I felt like that was aligned, actually. That was what he needed and what I needed. But I then let go of, I guess, that desire. Didn't think that would ever be possible for our family. And until our daughter then had started school last year, and I faced so much doubt within myself. I knew that school wasn't aligned for her, and yet I just kept hitting up against essentially the system, but also the wounding within myself. And I also, in a relationship with my husband, we weren't on the same page. And so I just had to keep coming back to my truth, because it just felt like everywhere I was kind of going up against, apart from obviously talking to you, but everywhere else was just like butting up, being told by the school that she was fine. She quite clearly was not fine at home. And it just felt like it was a wall. I just kept hitting a wall every time. Even though I knew in my heart that home education was aligned and the best thing for her and for us as a family. And so in January, we did take her out. Just backtrack a little bit. Before we actually took her out, I created a vision of how I wanted her home education to be and what I needed. It was like, again, facing this like, oh gosh, it's either me or her type thing. How am I going to be able to get my needs met? How am I going to be able to have the space I need whilst also home educating? But obviously, two things. One, that I've been on this journey for a long time. So I know when we meet these challenges, these initiations, that I can create what I need and what I desire. And two, because you'd walked this journey a few months ahead of me, synchronistically. And so to be able to see what you were creating as well, like kind of even more, I guess reminded me of my power and what I can create. Yeah. And it's really funny, actually. I was looking, I think it was this morning or yesterday, at a document I'd created during this whole initiation of what her home education would be like. And I'd done like a spreadsheet of like, these are all the activities, and this, she can do this, and she can go this place, and blah, blah. And we don't do any of that.
I love that. Because she was like, no, ditch the spreadsheet. Yeah. Like,
because I didn't see what else could be possible. What I've created now is having an amazing nanny 3 days a week who home educates her own children, and that I would just never believed or thought would be possible. So I was looking at all these, like, I guess what's already there, what's available. This is what I think would help.
Like really holding the vision and like holding the vision of the magical, like soul-led alternative is what I'm hearing in that. There's something in that as well that came up in the apothecary actually the other day around receiving. And I know that's been big for you. Like learning how to receive, as the feminine is built to receive. I wonder if there's anything to just speak to there. There's another place I want to go, because you said something about our children being mirrors, and so I wanted to talk a bit about spirit babies as well, but I think there's something on feminine receiving that could be helpful. So what's your journey been with learning to receive as a feminine woman?
Where do I start?
I mean,
it's taken
on its own.
Yeah, you can record a whole podcast to start receiving. It's taken a long time, is what and it's taken small steps, I guess. And actually, one of the biggest things is learning to receive from myself, i.e., giving myself what I need, and then that opening to me being able to receive from the masculine. I mean, that's been a huge, huge part of my healing, is healing my wounding around the masculine. And that has enabled me to open to receive more than I ever thought possible. And not just from, from my husband, for example, but from my dad, different relationship with my dad, but from the divine masculine. And that feels really present for me at the moment, actually, because I feel like I will ask for help. Some people might say call it a prayer, but I don't necessarily would call it that always myself. But I would, and then it comes in, and I was like, oh wow, how is that? How am I in this place?
I love that. I love that for multiple reasons, because it also ties into that spirit baby part of your gift, because it's essentially the remedy of Thuya we're talking about, that divinity piece. Before we go into that, I just want to ask, because you talked about pushback from your family being a big challenge. And I know that's also been, as you've alchemized that and worked with receiving, like that has opened up a different response. So I'm wondering if you can speak to that as well, because I think for particularly bringing it back to motherhood as an initiation, there can often be that real tension and discord between ourselves and our husbands, in like, particularly if we're here for a more wild way of living. So it's so vital, I think, to talk to that. And if there's anything you've got to share on that.
Yeah, actually what came to me as you were talking is actually around asking. We don't ask, we don't express, we shut down, we don't think it's possible, we don't feel worthy of asking. But I have learned to ask. Ask my dad, ask my husband, ask spirit. And that opens up a lot. And yes, it's scary. Yes, you like have all the, I can't ask for this, it's too much, I can't, but actually men want to provide and they can't provide if we don't express and we don't ask for what we need.
So she said that. Yes, because there's so much about reclaiming voice in that as well, isn't there? She howl, like howling, but in a loving way as well, because I know there's been a huge journey for you around like union, being in union with the divine masculine. And there's so much, I think, for women around, particularly mothers, around being judged, about being misunderstood, about, like you say, being too much. And yet when we kind of lean into those edges, we can be, we can receive, we can learn how to receive. So I love what you shared there. Wondering where to go next. But I feel like is there anything more around that, or does that feel kind of complete for now, other than going into a huge deep dive, making the whole episode?
I think the only other thing I was just going to say is kind of being vulnerable. It's like being okay with being vulnerable, to ask and express, and also that it's not necessarily always going to come out in the way that you want it to. But it, it's still, I guess it's just being compassionate with ourselves and loving ourselves in, where we are and what we need.
And that's so huge.
Yeah.
And brings me back to we'll talk about children as mirrors and spirit babies as well, but I also want to come to that kind of piece around like meeting ourselves in the dark. Wondering where to go next. Where would you like to go? Because you might see like threads tying those two together. But yeah, spirit babies and children as mirrors, or darkness and death. Which do you want to go for?
Well, they're actually both, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
That story. Yeah, well, I guess pulling them together is that our children pull us into the dark. They will, in regards to my story, my first birth, for one, my miscarriages, but my burnout as a mother, my overwhelm as a mother, my rage as a mother,
Mm.
Or, that is the initiation. And it's the way I see it and feel it is like they kind of pull us down into this, into the dark, because there is a part of us that needs to die for us to be able to rebirth as the mother that our soul came here to be. And whether that comes through actual death, in my case with my miscarriages, or in what I'm now terming is like an energetic death. You just feel the anxiety or the rage or the depression or the overwhelm, the burnout, because they're just, they basically have pulled you down, because they're saying, wake up. You can come back to your truth. Like, this isn't who you came here to be, and
I love that.
who
Especially
we
given the
need you to
title.
be in a way.
Yeah. I love that, because we renamed this. We both had this like instinct, didn't we, before we jumped on. We're like, I think the title is Motherhood as Initiation, and becoming the wild, instinctual mother that your soul came here to be. And so I love that, because it's like we so often feel like, and we do feel broken in these initiations, and that's, I think, very important to be honest and truthful about, and really meet ourselves in that, because we will feel broken in these initiations. Like, we're not saying don't feel broken. There's a lot of grief to be processed. There's a lot of honesty. And I think the temptation as a culture is to brush over that and plaster over it. And like, particularly you think of like people's typical responses to miscarriage. I think this is how we first connected, actually. Like, when I had a miscarriage, people would be like, oh, don't worry, you can have another one. And it's like, that's not like, that's, the witch is here to like have you, like, pull you down into that and allow you to feel the grief of that loss. And I know that's a huge part of your work. And also there's this piece around spirit babies that you work with that helps people to be able to journey with that and process that and receive guidance from their spirit babies. So I wonder if you can speak a little bit more to that, because I think the way that you particularly as well work with spirit babies is maybe a little bit different to how other people work with spirit babies. I might be wrong about that, but I wonder if there's anything to share around that.
And I guess kind of you sparks a fire in me with what you were saying around the way that our culture responds to loss, and baby loss in particular. The incredible insensitive comments that people can make. What I received as an example was, oh, it's probably for the best. And the things that I've been told by other mothers who have experienced miscarriage and stillbirth is unbelievable, to be honest. It just shocks me every time. And yet, I do understand, because people have no idea. They have no idea of the pain if they've not experienced it before. But also, people don't know how to be with death. So they don't know what to say. They're not meaning to be insensitive. They just don't know how to respond to you. And so many babies and mothers are not being honoured. So many mothers who have had babies who are born still have family members who won't even say their baby's name. I'm guessing because it's too painful for them, but they have no idea how that then impacts the mother. And also, if you have a miscarriage and an earlier loss, you're just expected to get back on with life. Nobody sees that you've firstly been pregnant and given birth. You are experiencing a postpartum. You are also experiencing a huge loss, and not just the loss of your baby, of the physical baby. You have lost that dream and desire. And as soon as we become pregnant, we look at when's our baby due, like, what's our life going to be like then? So you don't just lose, you lose the whole kind of, I guess, dream and desire and the way that you've seen your life is going to be in like 9-10 months time, and how your birth is going to be even. And all of this is just like swept under, wants to be like swept under the carpet because people can't, they don't want to talk about it. They can't go there. And it's interesting actually now, because this is like my world, and often I forget, like, I'll just talk about it, the way that I do, and I'll forget that other people aren't in the place that I am now. And I hope that'll change. I hope that will change the way that we respond to loss.
Yeah, I got goosebumps as you talk about it. I felt quite emotional because it is such a cultural conditioning. And just, we just don't know how to be with death. And therefore, we don't know how to be with the death of like motherhood as an initiation.
Yeah.
And so that leads me into, how do spirit babies help us navigate that?
So the way I work with spirit babies is, if I'm working with a woman one-to-one, I will call in her spirit babies. I will ask her if she wants to call in the babies that are waiting to come in, or the babies that she may have lost if she's experienced loss. Not majority of women that come to me have experienced loss, but not all. And I channel through a message from their spirit babies, essentially guiding them into healing and guiding them on their motherhood journey. But I always share there's a lot more depth to the message than the words. There's how they feel, and it's incredible actually, and it blows me away, even after these many years I've been doing it, that the energy that spirit babies bring in is always what the mother needs, and often what I need too, which is just amazing. They just bring us both into this space, whether it's like grounding or peace or relaxation or joy. They just, and even like when I work with a mother long term and I'm calling in her spirit baby, say like regularly, when we have a call, and the energy will change. They're what they bring in will change depending on what the mother needs in that moment. So there's that piece, and there's also the piece around what, and I think this is the piece that many women can find tricky to understand, I guess, like, because it's not logical really.
Yeah. Especially
But it's
witches. We love logic, but also we love magic. And we're like, hang on.
But it's like, what is that message reflecting to you? What is their message bringing up for you? What are the fears that are coming up? What are the stories that are coming up? Or even what's the emotion that's coming up? Like, is it joy? Okay, what is it around joy that they're wanting you to see? And yeah, that's the, I guess it's bringing in like the shadow element. But I call it more like reflection, what they're reflecting back to you.
They're holding up mirrors.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's what helps the women to see more around where they're being guided to. And it's a journey. It's not like a one-off quick fix. I think many healers can work with spirit babies in a way of like, you're going to have a boy or a girl, you're going to be due on this time, like conceive at this time, you need to eat this, you need to stop doing this, and kind of, I don't know, answering those questions. And yes, I can bring those sorts of messages through too, although I generally don't around the timing side of it, because it doesn't feel aligned with kind of the feminine healing. But there's a lot more they have to offer, and a lot more depth to it.
I think that's really gorgeous. And there's almost a sense of, because I know, as well as doing those readings one-to-one, you do work with women more deeply on learning how to communicate with their spirit babies themselves as well. And that can be really like much in the same way that I work with remedies, actually, and people can work with the remedies. People can learn how to work with their spirit babies and receive that wisdom for themselves and be able to channel that themselves and be able to communicate with spirit and with the spirit of their baby. And I think, there's something in that to speak to, and maybe something around the doubt, because I think, again, secret witches will all be like, "Ooh, tell me more," but at the same time, like, really, does that really possible? So what has this work shown you about the kind of unseen connection between mother and child? And does everyone have a spirit baby that they can call on to help them and guide them?
Okay, first question you said about doubt.
That was the first
one. Okay, so I feel like there is a lot of doubt, and even like, I guess, women who have worked with me for kind of a longer period of time and can, have already like established that communication, still experience resistance. And I don't think that's so much doubt. I think that's kind of power, fear of their power. Sort of that side of it. But I would say women who are quite new to it experience doubt in that, say, for example, they've like seen a sign or something, and they think, "Oh, that's from my spirit baby," like immediately, like, no. And then the doubt comes in. No. As in, I experienced the same thing when I communicated with our daughter for the first time, well, consciously for the first time, called her in. And I had the most incredible experience I've ever had in my life at that point with channeling and receiving messages from her. And then I kind of came out of it and I was like, that wasn't real. Like, that's nothing. Even though, even though, I knew that it was, but it's just, just the doubt comes in so quickly, like afterwards. And actually, some women now ask me if we can record the channeling on our calls, because I think it's helpful to have that kind of reminder. And yes, exactly. And just that reminder of the message, and reminder of what came up for them.
Yeah, I think so many secret witches will relate to that, because I know that's the same with anybody who's here to kind of channel or, work with other realms or, communicate in that way with the unseen and the things that people don't see as logical in our world. And it's almost like, again, it's like that, the witch kind of overriding her inner knowing. And also even like she-wolf, her inner instincts, like shutting down, like, no, that didn't happen. That doesn't make any sense. And, but yet still feeling this kind of like deeper connection to something bigger. Yes, that's a really, really powerful point. And I'm wondering how you learned to trust it, actually.
I guess it was sort of just continuing to do it initially, and then our daughter came in. So, I knew there was a spirit baby girl around me, right from when I conceived the first time on our conception journey. And I doubted that so much along the journey, but I just knew, I was like, I know there's baby girls to come in. And actually, I worked with the spirit baby communicator and healer myself on my journey too. And she brought her through. And it's just what I was going to say as well is it just takes time. It takes time. It takes practice. And just like, I think you just build up that trust a little bit at a time. You kind of get, you get a message, for example, and then there's proof of it. Or like, for like a bigger example, like I trusted that our baby girl wanted to come in, And she did. I mean, that was massive proof for me. So it's
Let's talk about it as like evidence to inform our confidence.
yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly that. And it's just building that up, and you build up that trust over time, don't you? The more and more you do it, and the more things you kind of try and open to.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we're coming up to time. So let me just see if there's anything else that I wanted to ask you. I guess one of the questions that comes to me is that how embodying your wild mother, which is what we've been talking about in essence, has like changed your life day to day. Like what have you created, I guess, that you're most proud of during your journey? Yeah, if there's anything there.
Probably support is what
Mm.
is what I would say I'm most proud of and appreciative of. I and yeah, actually it might be helpful for me to just share, because I know so many women are in this position, and so many women who come to work with me are in this position, in that we don't live near family. And I know it's the same for you too, and so many of us now. And we did when our son, up until he was 2. So I did have support from his grandparents up until that age. Although he wouldn't really go to them a huge amount because he only wanted to be with me. But I did have a bit of support there. And then we moved to a different county. And then our parents have become ill, and all sorts of things have then also them not be able to help. So it has initiated me into creating other support in our local area. And not from friends, because I also found that, and not because they didn't want to, of course, but everybody was always already so full with their own children and their own lives. So I did reach out for childcare support. We've had nurseries, we've had nannies, we've had childminders. And I was just about to say, and all wild. They were all very intentionally created. I intentionally looked for alternative childcare providers. We've had Montessori nurseries, forest school nurseries, wild nannies and childminders. So it's possible to create support in a way that aligns with you and your children. And yeah, that's the biggest difference for me now, is having that time and space for myself, knowing that they're with people that I trust and they trust, and that is aligned for them.
Of course, that then has helped you to create your bigger magical vision as well.
And meet my needs. I mean, massively, it's about being able to meet my needs. And I've found, more ways to meet my needs when they are here too. So yeah, and obviously, and creating my business.
Gorgeous. I love that so much. I feel like we could definitely do a part 2 on alternate. Yeah, I would love to know. So for the women who are listening at home and they're like, motherhood, I'm resonating with that as being an initiation, and I'm feeling the call to my wild mother. Like, what's kind of the entry point that you see for her? Yeah, I'm just going to leave that open and see, like, what's one way that she can start to really tune into her wild instincts as a mother?
Oh, I feel like there's so many things I could say. I think I'd have to start with knowing what your needs are, because you can't meet your needs unless you know what they are. And once you start recognizing what your needs are, then start meeting them. And that doesn't mean don't mean to say like you need space, you need to go get a nanny for 3 days a week. It's it's just starting where you are, meeting yourself where you are. Maybe that's creating some time with your husband to have the children so you can have a bath or go for a walk, or just meeting yourself where you are and starting there, and knowing that over time you can grow it and you can create what you really, really desire to create, you know, say in like a year's time or 2 years time or 5 years time. But it's, yeah, definitely meeting your needs, recognizing what your needs are, and yeah, meeting them.
I love that so much. I'm just feeling just really like this beautiful sense of like how huge your journey has been and like how much it's created over the time that I've known you. It's been a privilege to witness your unfolding as a wild mother, actually, and meeting all those like various motherhood initiations. So yeah, it's just gorgeous to hear you expressing that from such an embodied, wild, place. So thank you so much. Yeah, I wonder if there's any other truths that you want to share with Secret Witches before we complete.
I think probably just the one thing I want to say is, even though it feels like it's not possible, you can create your vision, and that it takes time. I think that's the biggest thing I've seen recently is like we can have these desires and we can have these visions, and they might take years. They might, you know, and because there's likely a lot of healing that needs to happen. You know, I had this desire to home educate 8 years ago. I couldn't have done it in the way that I desired to do it then. I wouldn't have had the support. I would have burnt out. And now I have done the healing I needed to do to be able to create the life that I want and that I desire and that is aligned for our family. There's so many other examples I can give of like visions and desires I had that have taken years to manifest.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important to know, is that and I know it's really frustrating when you're, you know, at the place where you're like, I just want this life now. But I think we can feel like, and we can see on, you know, be shown on social media that manifesting is really easy and quick and we can just get things like that. But this doesn't always happen like that. And it doesn't mean that you can't have it. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Even if it takes time, it doesn't mean you have to give up on it and that it won't ever happen. It just means that it might just be taking a bit longer.
Yeah, I love that. And also bringing it back to initiation, that those initiations are cool. Like they're the call to say, like, look here, create this. Yeah, I love that so much. There was actually a question I've just realised, and we've kind of gone over on time now. But there's a question from the group, which I'm wondering if you are open to answering or just seeing what comes up. So Carrie says, I want to know how you make a living being a wild soul. All I want to do is walk barefooted in the woods and sit by waterfalls and write about the beauty of our world and share it with the world. I want to dance naked in the moonlight with the songs of frogs and the owls. And I think we can all relate to this one in many ways. You've already kind of answered it. But yeah, so I'm wondering if there's anything else that you want to add for this woman who's longing for the life that essentially you've created by being in the work and embracing your wild witch mama.
Yeah. And I guess if we're talking about money and wealth and being financially supported, I have created that in all different ways. So not just focusing on like one way of receiving income to be supported as a mother. I receive income from so many different places. So do you want me to give some, would that be helpful if I give some examples?
That's up to you.
So I've been thinking about sharing this more on my social media page anyway. So, because I think, you know, I have been in that place myself of like, how do you do this? How do you get financial support? How do you like be a stay-at-home mum and work at home mum and have business and be financially supported? So I think it is helpful for me to share that I have received support from my parents. I have received inheritance twice. I've received money through my business. I received financial support through my husband, and we receive some government funding as well for our children because they are neurodivergent. So I think sometimes we can get like, well, I certainly was like this too, sort of fixated and focused on one way. Yeah, one way to support ourselves financially to have the life that we desire. When you open to possibility and you do the healing around receiving, you'll see that there's so many different possibilities to be financially supported in the way that you desire. And I'm obviously not saying like everyone's going to have the same ways as me at all, but I just wanted to give some examples to show that there's different possibilities of how we can receive that financial support and live the life that we desire to live.
I love that. It's like that opening to possibility of like receiving in all the ways that are aligned for us, rather than just what we think that we should be creating. So yeah, and
because I was very much in is it Carrie? I was very much in that place of just really like, how am I going to make a living with doing, X, Y, Z, and when I opened up to different possibilities, it really has changed everything for me.
I love that. Yeah, and of course, again, that opening to receiving. So much in that, so much, because the opening piece is huge. I feel like that could be a whole episode, but I love that. Thank you so much. Where can people find out more about you and your work, and how do you help women?
So I'm mostly on Instagram and Facebook. On Mystical Birthing is my my handle, and I have a monthly email which is called A Love Letter from Your Spirit Babies, and that comes out around the new moon each month, and that is a channeled message for all the women who are on the email list. So all the women and all the mothers on the email list, I call in all their spirit babies and ask them to share a message with them that they need to hear right now on their motherhood journey. And you can sign up to that on my bio in my Instagram, Facebook. And also I offer spirit baby readings and spirit baby voice messages, actually, which is almost like a mini reading, and it's sent to you via email rather than having a live call. So the readings are done as an hour live call, and then I guide women on 3-month or longer mystical conception journeys. So women who perhaps have had a spirit baby reading and want to go deeper, and if they want to do deeper work. But essentially, I probably should say that I guide women who have experienced baby loss and experiencing challenges in conceiving. I guide them into conception and then into creating the motherhood that they desire to create.
I was just going to ask you about the rest of the motherhood journey, because I know we've talked about that before. So you help people with conception, but is that also something, motherhood in general?
And and as I think you mentioned a few times, like I did train as a doula, many years ago now. I haven't felt called really to attend births as a doula, because a lot of my work has been in the conception phase, preconception phase. I do, and I would support women throughout their whole motherhood journey. Whether in the future I will do in-person work and attend births, I'm not sure yet. I'm still kind of open to it. But at the moment, I'm very much called to supporting women globally, online, through their whole motherhood journey.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much. We'll put all of that in the show notes, where to find you. And I'm sure there will be a part 2 at some point.
Feels like so much more today.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, it's been really been really lovely, and yes, it's really wonderful just reflecting, and I guess kind of even for us, like looking at things at slightly different perspective, even though we've been in it for so long together.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, thank you so much.
You.
You're very welcome. This was such a special episode for me. Here are my key takeaways. Motherhood is not just a role, it is an initiation into our truth. Our children pull us towards the places we've abandoned ourselves so we can become the mother our soul came here to be. The wild mother is not the perfect mother. She's the instinctual mother who learns to trust her body, her truth, and her knowing, even when it goes against conditioning. The shadow of the remedy she-wolf swings between the good girl and the rebel. Healing begins when we stop reacting from fear and start expressing from loving truth. Birth, miscarriage, rage, burnout, grief, and overwhelm are not signs that you are broken. They are often initiatory portals calling us deeper into ourselves. Receiving is a feminine initiation, learning to ask for help, expressing our needs, and opening to support changes what becomes possible for our lives and our families, especially as mothers. Creating a magical soul-aligned life often takes years, not weeks. The vision may arrive long before we have the capacity, healing, or support to fully live it, but that does not mean it isn't meant for us.